Hello, and welcome to this live stream. I am so excited to be here and to talk to you all today about the subject of addressing childhood trauma with root cause therapy. So, for those of you that don't know who I am the co founder of the Center for Healing, which was established in 2016. I'm the creator of Root Cause Therapy and the head trainer. And I'm also the creator of Trauma Informed Manifestation Coaching. I'm the author of the book, The Natural High. And yes, I'm very passionate about helping people get out of their own way. I'm very passionate about mental health and addictions. And so myself and my partner Ryan ran an outpatient mental health and addiction center, which we opened back in 2016. And we help many people with their mental health and addictions using root cause therapy. Mostly people that found that mainstream therapies or rehabs were not working for them. And the main premise of what we would do is to work with their trauma. And we found that when we worked with people's trauma, it would increase the success rate of someone being able to give up or their symptoms going right down dramatically with trauma healing. And that's why we're so passionate about trauma healing and the subject. And so we ran our own center. We grew it to quite a large team. And it was so amazing. We saw thousands of clients and saw incredible results in the industry. And then myself and my partner, we had a child. And just before COVID, we actually decided to, after many, many people asked us, many other practitioners asked us, can you please train us in your method? Just because we were getting such incredible results. And so we, put it all together. And now we have, I'm very proud to say, amazing practitioners, amazing people all over the world that have taken this training, that are now qualified practitioners and on our practitioner directory. And they are completely changing the lives of so many people. And so I wanted to share with you today, and I wanted to really talk about how we can use root cause therapy to address childhood trauma. Now, I just want to say firstly that usually when people come for therapy, they are often adults. And so with root cause therapy, we are going back to their childhood quite often and healing the root cause. Now, if you're watching and you're someone that you actually help children now, you help them with their trauma now, we do offer a healing children protocol in level 2 of root cause therapy. Would say that upfront, just in case you're wondering. Now, I just want to let you guys know a few things about childhood trauma. But before I do, I would love for you to drop in the comments where you're watching from in the world, and what modality you are already using. If you're already a practitioner, tell us a bit about your business. I think we can have this really solid and amazing worldwide community of people supporting us that are in this space. And it's not easy work, but it's very important. So we can all connect with each other and support each other. I think that is absolutely wonderful. And also, if you know any practitioners or coaches or therapists that are interested in healing, in shadow work, in trauma healing, in nervous system, then please tag them and share this with them so they can watch along with you. So I just want to jump into some statistics because I think it's really important that we have this information. So in regards to childhood trauma, and I was looking on the worldwide statistics now, and I will drop these references after I finish this live so you can check it out. But nearly 3 in 4 children, or 300 million children aged 2 to 4, regularly suffer physical punishment and or psychological violence at the hands of their parents and caregivers. Now, that is a huge statistic. Okay. And I have a child myself. And look, I am not perfect. I have yelled. I mean, no matter how trauma informed you are, we still have emotions and we still have certain capacities to what we can handle. So I'm not here to shame you if you're a parent. Again, this is just awareness for practitioners, right? And so now sexual trauma is more common than people realize, especially in childhood. So 1 in 5 women and 1 in 13 men report having been sexually abused as a child, ages 0 to 17. And sorry, that's just my assistant saying she can hear me, so that's great. um, that is a huge statistic in itself because for me personally, my sexual abuse caused so many issues in terms of my behaviors, my risk taking, my drug taking, my coping mechanisms, my behaviors, on top of um, other things that can occur that we can say are trauma, and there's a scale, but it could be like being emotionally abandoned as a child. It could be physically abandoned. There's so many things, but yeah, sexual. And this is not saying that's by the caregivers. It could be by anyone, right? And the thing is, it's so important that if these children are getting healing, or at least as an adult, our clients are starting to heal. Because again, and this is from the World Health Organization, a child who is abused is more likely to abuse others as an adult. So that violence is passed down from one generation to the next. It is therefore critical to break this cycle of violence, and in so doing, create positive multi-generational impacts. There's also a higher chance of children that are witnessing violence growing up. They are more likely to enter into a violent or abusive relationship, unfortunately. And so now I want to talk about the biology. So when children are growing up, they're getting a sense of the model of the world. So their physical body, their nervous system, their neurons, they're all being created as they're growing up. So whatever their environment is, their nervous system and their body will be molded to that, right? And so the dynamics that they experience, either between themselves and a parent, or friends or siblings, or other caregivers, those dynamics that they watch or that they experience create their filters and understandings and models to then how they are going to be interacting with the world, right, as they grow older, right? And so if you have clients that, they're coming in, and something we teach our practitioners is, when someone first comes to see you, we are asking about these things like, what was your upbringing like? What was your experience? Because it can connect to a few dots of like, oh, you're just like repeating what you saw, and that is not your fault. And so we can start to shift those with root cause therapy. So with that child's nervous system, whether they feel safe or not, their body will adjust to be in the best capacity to survive. Okay. And so that might not always be a healthy environment, but their body will adjust to that. So there might be like fawning responses, people pleasing responses. There might be shutdown and disassociation responses, because at the time and growing up, it kept them safe. And because it's so ingrained, they can more often than not take that into adulthood. So you're getting people that are scared of conflict. And when I say conflict, healthy conflict, like working things out, having deep relationships, speaking up, saying what our needs are. We'll often, if you have someone that didn't feel safe to do that growing up, they're going to take that into adulthood, and then they're going to be quite unhappy in their relationships or in their workplaces. But consciously they want to, they probably consciously want to say something, but the body takes over and says it's not safe, they won't be able to say anything. And that can create a lot of hardship and a lot of negative thinking and circumstances that are not ideal in someone's adult life, right? And so, as you can imagine, from an infant, growing up as a child, it's really laying the foundation of the nervous system, and it's really laying the models of how they're going to take in information, how they're going to react to certain things, because they are literally learning machines, right? And as we know, they're going to take in information of like how to their language and like how to use different senses and how to physically do things, but they're also taking in emotional information and information of how to be, right? And how to be safe. Even if it's detrimental to them, they needed to survive. They relied on their caregivers, even if they were abusive, to survive, right? And 90% of a child's brain development happens by the time they're 5 years old, right? So that's from startingblocks.gov.au if you want to look into that, and I'll link it after the call if you want to have a look. So that's mind-blowing, because that means most of our personality, most of the patterns and the way that we think, most of our belief systems and the way that we are in relationships and the triggers and the quirks are created by the time we're 5 years old, right? And it can be really difficult to, if you've got someone, in a coaching space or therapy space, to just talk with someone when usually ages 0 to 5, we're just learning to talk. We don't have the cognitive ability yet to speak. So it's like pre-speech, and we're trying to get someone to talk through what happened or to remember what happened. You're just not going to get down deep enough to where actually the root cause will be. Okay. So just let's talk about the stress response for a moment, because this is what I want to kind of link in your mind is trauma. So for a lot of us, it's like trauma was like, yeah, sexual abuse, you saw a car accident, you're in an accident, something major. But trauma is so individual to each person that, yes, we can make some assumptions of some symptoms that can occur due to certain traumas. But with this work, it's very client-centered, and it's very much like, if your body thinks that was an extremely stressful or toxic situation and you couldn't regulate yourself, or there wasn't a safe space there to regulate and move through that, it's not about cotton balling our children. It's about helping them to actually process things that come up, and obviously make a safe space as we can in our house for them. With animals, say for example, that normal stress of like, oh, I'm a rabbit and the fox is chasing me and I run away and I get into my hole and I'm fine, that's that short burst of stress where they're like and they're able to calm. So they're having the bursts of stress, right? And we can quickly recover. Or as children, there might be a safe person in the house that we go to, so we can process it, calm down, and feel safe again quite quickly. But if we don't have that, and we don't have that gap in between the bursts, if it's ongoing stress, then we're not recovering. And then because our nervous system is being wired at that time, we take that into adulthood, even though maybe now your clients might be in a safe relationship, they might be in a safe home and things like that. Their body is still anxious. Their body is still stressed, waiting for the worst thing to happen, right? And they might be thinking the worst case scenarios all the time, because that's just an automatic response that their body does now. It's taken that survival stress and it's bringing it into their current reality, and even projecting it into their future. So obviously with anxiety, they're thinking the worst case scenarios in the future. And because our body doesn't know whether something is happening, or we're recalling or imagining something in the future, it will react like it's happening now. And so our bodies are real time machines, And so when ideally, like, there will be a safe person to them to help them process their emotions or to talk it out or to speak up, right? But if not, we essentially have to take our clients back there and help them to reparent their inner child and really, um, um, help them to, um, go back essentially in the time machine and to resolve and to, shift what is still affecting them now, right? And so then when their inner children are then intact with self-love, they've got that positive self-talk, they've got that someone who will advocate for them and stand up for them, even if it's, just in our psychology, even if it's just in our mind, then that will translate into now, right? Just like the triggers come into now, that positivity comes into now and out into our future. And so, if anyone's watching this that went to school with me, they were like, "How did you create the life that you've created?" Well, I have done a lot of root cause therapy, and yeah, it completely shifted my ability to be in the present moment, to learn and study. I was so disassociated; my prefrontal cortex was so shut down, and my amygdala was so activated with all of this stress and suppressed emotions and fear that I didn't, and I had no coping mechanisms, that I had to like actually like go back, process the emotions, teach myself how to have better coping mechanisms or not even need them anymore, to be honest, because I don't have things like I don't have as much to cope with now. So there's, so I just want to talk about like that's trauma, painful experiences that we haven't processed yet. So that toxic stress that hasn't been able to leave our body, like our body hasn't been able to recover. We're only meant to have bursts of stress. But yeah, traumas such as neglect, watching or experiencing violence, verbal or physical, sexual abuse, even from being in the womb and whatever our mother was going through, obviously the hormones are going to be going through their system. And then if we're inside our mother's womb, we're going to be experiencing that. And we are getting ready for coming out into the world. We are understanding to a degree what our mother is saying, what they're going through, and things like that. So, yeah, but if these things are ongoing, if there's no safe space, from the wound to a teen, there's a lot happening, right? There's a lot of information that we're taking and we're growing, we're laying that foundation. So if it's ongoing, if it's not resolved, then it'll result in an adult who may unconsciously, unfortunately, recreate or reenact the scenarios and relationships that they saw or experienced, or recreate the behaviors that kept them feeling safe or, in that survival mode. And so it's really important that we just clear up that trauma is just not one label of really extreme things happening. It's whatever it is for that person. I've certainly had clients, or even for myself, it was actually really traumatic for me. And obviously it depends on the goal that your client has, but it's really, I wanted to do speaking like this, but I literally couldn't do it. I couldn't get myself to do it. So I would shut down and I would make excuses, and, my body would go into survival mode and freak out. And then when I looked at the root cause, it actually went back to when I was at school and I got yelled at because, I can't remember what I did, but exactly, but it was something like I felt ashamed, in front of the class. And so my body is just trying to protect me from experiencing that pain again. But when I could actually go back and fully resolve that, now it's easier for me to do this. I don't feel like I'm going to be ashamed or get in trouble. And these are the things that affect our everyday life or what is possible for us, And so obviously we want to talk about how can root cause therapy work? How can root cause therapy address these childhood traumas effectively? Well, one of my good friends and mentors, Melanie, once said to me, "It's never too late to have a good childhood." And this is really the true essence of the work that we do as RCT practitioners. As a practitioner, we're helping people to heal in a few key ways. So number one, we're creating a safe space and a safe relationship for that person and all those little people inside them in their psyche to start to feel and share their emotions, their heartaches, their betrayals, their hurt, their guilts, and this is healing in itself, obviously, because most trauma is relational. We're in relationship with other people where the trauma occurred. And so if they can have a relationship where they aren't judged or shamed for how they're feeling, about what they went through, about how they're coping as an adult, then yeah, it's obviously going to help them open up, right? And I guess it's kind of like talk therapy for some of the session, because it's all about revealing and discovering, um, rather than making assumptions about why they are feeling the way they're feeling or giving textbook reasons why they're feeling the way that they're feeling. So here is the practitioner guide that comes with the training. And so we actually have a set way to run people through sessions. So we use what's called the testing sheet. And so you're not going to go into a session and kind of just talk around in circles or anything like that. We're actually holistically looking at that person, and we're looking at how can we look at your whole life, how you're feeling now, but also things you might still be holding on to that we can work with and how they're still affecting you today. And so that structure and that testing sheet that I just showed you, that structure gives you a set way to take clients through so they feel like they're not repeating themselves and they feel like they're in a professional, held, and safe space, right? And what's really important is moving from session to session. So the first session with you, second session with you, third session with you, you know exactly what to do and prioritize in each session. And we're moving the information across and checking in each session. They feel really heard, and you know what you're doing and you know exactly what to prioritize. And we're not going around in circles and the clients are not getting frustrated, right? Because essentially what we want to do in root cause therapy and what I really believe in is that, yes, we need to be professional and not make the clients repeat themselves, but we don't want them to just intellectualize what happened to them in their younger years. And we want to come to more resolutions. So we're not getting the information so we can make assumptions and be like, oh, yes, that's really common for A, B, and C, or you're having these symptoms that might be ADHD and things like that. We are really looking at, okay, let's see what comes up. And then we're going to take their current self and their wisdom and their knowledge that they have now back to their younger selves to reparent themselves, to give themselves the love they didn't have for those resolutions. Now, it's not always our inner child. Sometimes it is generational or ancestral trauma, So I've definitely gone back to when I was my grandma and she was in a village in Sri Lanka and she couldn't feed. She was holding babies and they were around her and she just had a little bit of rice, And this kind of came through when I was working on why was I so uncomfortable with going to the supermarket and why did I didn't like going out for dinner, even though I really wanted to go out for fancy dinners. Every time I would go, I would have these thoughts like there's not enough food, and these really intrusive thoughts around it. It was very interesting. And I thought growing up, I definitely had enough food. Like, I don't know if it was the best food, it was the 80s, but once I went into that and resolved that with the root cause therapy, all of a sudden those intrusive thoughts left. And I actually ran that past my mom and said, I experienced being in your mom and this is how she was feeling. This is the approximate age of the children. She goes, yep. And she's never told me consciously ever. She goes, yep, that was me, my brother, my two brothers, and my cousin who used to help with us. And that would have been around when my dad's business failed, right? And so those confirmations, they blow my mind, but it is all about like, okay, now I can eat food without having those intrusive thoughts. So it can come from, again, we don't want to make assumptions. We want the clients to lead us, their body, their intelligence of their body and their nervous system to lead us to the actual root cause, right? So we can finish processing the emotions and gain the wisdom, right? So yeah, we're going through and we're in each session, we know the priorities to work on based on their goal. We're checking what needs to be worked on. We are prioritizing by symptoms or behaviors that are affecting their lives the most and taking the most energy. So we don't label or prescribe, and people can say they have different labels, which in the DSM-5 like, okay, you have these certain symptoms and this is a label. Very helpful for coping and everything like that. Definitely. It can be a relief for a lot of people, and I don't want to take away from that. But as root cause therapists are like, okay, these are the symptoms. Let's methodically work through them. Right. So that's the main thing. And then we're going to the root cause of each of the symptoms and healing in that way. Okay. So when we actually go and do the healing work, because the old learnings and perceptions and the stresses and trauma are often stuck in the body, we do need to work deeper than the conscious mind and just talking. We do need to speak the language of the body. And so that's why we're asking the body, we're going a little bit deeper than just the conscious mind. We're It's just, imagine your clients having to relive and reenact their trauma or struggle with their triggers over and over again, which most of us are. Okay. So, in this course, you do your own work as well. This is a part of, even getting certified is, and I guess most of you are definitely into this. Otherwise you wouldn't be in this industry. But these are still affecting us. And look, we can't heal everything at once. And we do need to come from a space of healing out of self-love, not that there's something wrong with us, which is definitely a focus that we have in root cause therapy. But you want to get them to a point where they can feel safer in their bodies, where they're safe, they feel okay with uncomfortable emotions, they can manage them a lot better, right? Because when someone has a huge trigger or emotional reaction or a big shutdown, or a huge stressor happening in their life, when seemingly someone might be like, that's a weird reaction for this little thing that's happened, it's usually triggered so many layers that go back to a root cause, not just one thing. It can be like PTSD. It can be things that have reoccurred because they have unconsciously recreated. It's just like, just say we have financial trauma. Maybe we grew up where money was a little bit stressful and there was always stress. So we're little, we associate stress with money or making money. And so as we become a young adult, yeah, maybe we like are good at making money and we want to avoid feeling poor and those uncomfortable feelings of like there's conflict in the house when there's no money. But at the same time, we want to get rid of the money because it's associated in our mind that having money makes conflict as well. And so we keep recreating what we saw. We keep recreating those patterns, but there's a lot of emotional energy behind it. There's a lot of triggers where like people get a bill and put it away straight away and they don't deal with it. Or the money comes in and goes straight out. This is just an example. Or if anyone talks about doing well, they get very ashamed and triggered and start judging that person, And so it's these kind of things that take away our peace, and are these kind of things that take away happiness to our clients. And all the emotions are very important, right? All of the everything that we feel is so important, but it's hard to listen to our gut and our intuition when there's so many emotions just whirling around. And normally we would get, an emotion, I feel a bit guilty or I feel a bit ashamed, not going to do that. But when we have all of these suppressed emotions because we weren't safe, it wasn't safe to process it, or a lot happened and it got suppressed and pushed away. So our body, is trying to protect us from reliving that every day. It still comes out. It still affects our clients in ways. So how root cause therapy can help is in the processing and in the healing part of the therapy. And sorry, I just want to pause here. If you guys have questions, because I'm streaming from an app that's streaming to several pages. I can't see them, but when this finishes, I will go through and I will answer your questions. So I apologize if you guys have been asking questions and you're like, why is she not answering my questions? It's just I cannot see the questions, and I'll go through on each platform and check them and get back to you. And if you need to jump off, there's the link in the description as well of where you can find more information about root cause therapy. There's a free pre-training that you can watch. And yeah, we've actually got something special coming up in a few days. So even if you can't watch the free pre-training, just put your details in so you'll get notified of that. So in the processing and the healing part of the therapy, so there's two parts. There's going through that testing sheet, checking belief systems, checking traumas, checking things they're still holding on to, and behaviors and thoughts and coping mechanisms. We do then have a specific set of questions that helps our clients actually get to the root cause. And the root cause of the symptoms that we discover in the first half of the session. So, we holistically look at the client, then we're prioritizing based on their goal, and then we're asking these specific questions. That also is in the guide, exactly what to ask when, to be able to access those deeper parts of the mind. They're still fully conscious and awake. It's not really hypnotherapy. They're still it's very safe because they're able to interact with you and you can talk with them, and it's not like they have it is like they have full control. So they have full control. So it's definitely it's more empowering and safer for a client, basically. And for practitioners too, to have the confidence of not worrying about saying the wrong thing or giving the wrong advice, because the client's prefrontal cortex is still switched on and can filter, what resonates, what doesn't resonate. Okay. But basically the body and the nervous system will remember exactly the first time, so you can get the whole pattern. It's either it will get the repeating pattern that someone's repeating, or it'll be like, because of this trauma, that is why you have these behaviors. And there's a huge amount of self-forgiveness that can occur of like, wow, it wasn't actually my fault. And of course, it's never a child's fault. But then as an adult in therapy, we're often told that it's our fault, in a sense, like that we need to change things. But it's usually the younger version of us that need that love and support and the guidance. And as an adult, we'll naturally have better behaviors, right? We'll naturally look after ourselves better. We'll naturally think about ourselves better. We'll naturally have better standards, so we have better relationships, etc. So yeah, I've seen time and time again conducting sessions for the last 8-9 years. And for many of our graduates and practitioners, obviously I hear all the time from all over the world, it gets right to the first event or that root cause of where that neural pathway and stress response and that emotional energy was created and still stored, where that belief was created that they weren't good enough, or that they can't trust people, or that they will always be betrayed, or that love is meant to be painful. If that's all they see growing up, that love, they have that programming that, okay, love is painful, then obviously they're going to unconsciously attract, even though there's red flags, attract a partner or create drama in the relationship to adhere to that belief, even though they don't consciously want that, of course, that that love is meant to be painful. And that's just a few examples. We have frameworks for relationships, money, anxiety, depression, and so many more. There's protocols that come with the course. So if someone presents with a certain thing, you've got a specific training and PDF guide for that. And that's just included in the training, along with many other bonuses that you can soak all the information from. And so, like I was saying earlier, it could be in the womb, when the mother was like feeling very alone and isolated. And so because we're like feeling what our mum is feeling, we could take that belief on too. And maybe nothing major happened growing up where we were abandoned or we lost our mom or things like that. But we can be with a group of people but feel very alone and feel like people aren't there to support us, even if there are people there to support us. And we can imagine, in the future that we're still going to be alone. So you can imagine the huge shift that can occur when we can actually get to that root cause and retrain the body and the mind. And luckily, with neuroplasticity, our brain can change and our nervous system can change, and our reactions and our filters of how we see ourselves in the world, that they can change. And we do that by whatever the emotion or emotions were. Those really, when you have a really strong emotion, you don't always make the best decisions. That's what essentially happens, because a lot of emotions are new to us growing up. And again, if we don't have that safe space, or we don't understand how to process emotions or talk it out with someone, then it locks into our amygdala, not locks into our nervous system, that fear, that threat of survival, and we suppress it, and that shame or the anger, whatever it is, we can start to process that. So we're going to the root cause, and we're finishing the processing of the unprocessed loop of emotions, right? And so we do this in a really specific way, where we're helping the clients complete that stress energy that wasn't able to leave their body and has been trapped in that moment, that's still influencing them, whether consciously or unconsciously today. And so there's like a red flag or a marker that gets triggered in the DNA, causing the physical issues, causing the emotional issues. So these can start to be changed with that neuroplasticity and with the help of somatically. So again, we're not trying to give clients advice or getting them to intellectualize their trauma. We're getting them actually to somatically heal it in the body where it's being held, all the emotions attached to it, because that is what is holding the information in the body, right? And that is what is getting triggered. And so um, not only that, a part of their sense of self gets like broken off as well. And so it's like, if you've had a fight with someone and all of a sudden they're like acting like a child, they've probably been triggered and tapping into that childlike part of themselves. So we're getting these parts, and that is essentially what healing is. It's bringing these fragments back together and healing them, right? Into the coming back to oneness, remembering who we are, remembering that we are always worthy of love, and we are always good enough, and we are always amazing and smart. And unfortunately, with these things growing up, a lot of our clients forget a lot of it. And so being able to do this and do that inner child work if it's needed, to bring that back and heal it in the moment, and bring back that splitting off of that part of themselves back in. And so we're able to repair it and take the wisdom from, I guess, we can share our wisdom and our experience, but also the clients are going to have wisdom as well. And another major thing is reconnecting them with their soul and their intuition. And so what starts to drop in, and they start downloading so much information once you get that emotion out of the way, and so many realizations, and what needs to happen, they'll know what needs to happen. So again, we are a guide. They are healing themselves. And so, of course, our practitioners gain knowledge, and there's a lot of concepts that are taught to help if a client needs help with it, because we get clients from different levels of personal development and on the healing journey. But again, it's not about making those assumptions. It's going, okay, this is the actual root cause. Let's clear the emotions. Okay, what's dropping in? What do we need to know? Could it be this? Could it be that? And again, the client's conscious, so they can kind of sift through what resonates with them, what doesn't resonate. They'll know what their inner child needs, or sometimes we can help out a little bit, and start to shift that assumption or belief that they have about the world that is no longer serving them, and instill different information and wisdom. So it's kind of like, definitely with trauma healing, people go through a grieving stage of what would my life have been like if this didn't happen to me, or if I had different parents, or if I was different with my children, or I was different, with that sibling, or, if that bad thing didn't happen to me. There is going to be a grieving process with that. But the positive side is we get to have a whole new childhood where we were supported, where we were loved, where we did feel safe, as our clients methodically move through the system of root cause therapy. And so that's why I come back to that quote of, it's never too late to have a good childhood, because it's true, and it's very exciting. And I think trauma can be a really heavy subject, but I think it's so exciting that we can go back and heal, and we can completely change our lives for the better and feel better in ourselves and our quality of life. So, as I mentioned before, and if I don't, the link should be there hopefully at the top of or in the description. And if it isn't, I'll link it. Just say I want the webinar, and I'll link it for you. So put your details in, even if you don't have time to watch it today. In about 2 days or 1 or 2 days, we're going to release a really special offer. So make sure you're on the list for that. And again, I'll just mention, if you do actually you're here and you're like, well, I don't work with adults, I work with children, there is a children's healing protocol level 2, which is quite inexpensive, and you can just add it on at checkout. And I've got actually a few of my graduates are just seeing so many children, and the results are mind-blowing. And if we can help them at a younger age, obviously that's going to be amazing for them. And so, yeah, any questions, just drop them below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being a part of the Center for Healing community. My heart just is so grateful that you're here and that you're healing the world. Like, you are doing such important work, and this is such an important role. And I really wanted to bring an amazing transformative tool to people that are ready to create an even deeper impact, an even bigger impact. And I try and support you guys as much as I can. And the more of us, the better, because, the statistics that I was saying at the start, and I will drop those in for references that anyone wants to check them out, is absolutely mind-blowing. And the more that we heal people, the more that we're going to help the next generation hopefully not need as much trauma healing. That is my hope and my wish. So again, thank you so much for being here. Any questions, I'll come back and have a look at your comments, and I hope to see you in our community soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.